I upload daily NBA content on this channel, so if that is something that interests you, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. Also, real quick, 2 things. This is the first episode of a series I am doing of power rankings covering each team in the league in the order of how good I think they're going to be going into the 2021 season. Also, there's a new episode of my NBA series over on my second channel, so if you have not checked that one out yet, go watch it. But yeah. The Detroit Pistons last year were not very good. They had a 20-46 record and didn't have a semblance of structure to the roster. There were the remains of last year's team with Drummond and Blake Griffin, a new vet with Derrick Rose, and an assortment of young players like Sekou Doumbouya, Christian Wood, Svi Mykhailiuk, and Luke Kennard. They eventually traded their quote-unquote franchise player in Andre Drummond and allowed Christian Wood to break out and average 20 and 8 over 22 games. However, this offseason they let him walk. Instead, they spent their money on Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumley, and because they were bad, they got a lottery pick that they used to draft Killian Hayes. And they traded for 2 firsts that they used to take Isaiah Stewart and Saddiq Bey, moving Luke Kennard in the process. So heading into next season, how good do I think they will be? Well, as you can tell from the title and the fact that they're the first video in this series, not very good. The Pistons are made up of a bunch of young guys who do not yet know how to win, a bunch of veterans who are just there for paychecks, and overall this roster was put together with no real structure in mind for the actual on-the-court product. So I think the Detroit Pistons will be the worst team in the NBA next season. Let's go over the depth chart for this team. At point, I imagine they will start Killian Hayes over Derrick Rose, using Rose as a 6-man. Their shooting guard spot could go to Mykhailiuk or DeLon Wright, or they could start Hayes at the 2, which honestly might be the best option, but as of now, I'll leave it at this. I think they might want to start Rose for the revenue, but also they'd be a better team and have a better record because of this, so I'm not sure what direction they'd want to go. The forward situation gets weird because of Blake Griffin. He's been hurt, and even when he played last year, he was bad, and there's a good chance that he's hurt some more based on the precedent of his entire career. So I'll give him the 4 spot, Grant the 3 spot, and Sekou and Saddiq will come off of the bench, but I imagine that we will see one of those 2 alongside Grant in the starting lineup for a good chunk of the year. Then the centers are Mason Plumley and Isaiah Stewart. I'll be interested to see who among these 2 will be the starter because they paid Plumley, but Stewart was the 15th pick in the draft on a team that needs young talent, so I'm far from certain. This roster actually isn't as bad talent-wise as I thought when I actually went to review it, but the issue is none of these pieces really fit together to anything substantial on the court. There are many factors outside of the talent on this team as to why I believe they will be the worst team in the league. A. The young talent on this team is not being catered to for success whatsoever. Most of these guys are relatively raw, and the Pistons are kind of throwing them to the wolves. For the vets on this team, Plumlee is not a ceiling raiser for young guys. Jeremy Grant has made it clear he is just here for more shots. Derrick Rose kind of helps the young players, but that is about it. On top of that, Dwayne Casey does not have an advanced offense at all, so this is going to be 2 second-year players and 4 rookies running a freelance offense, and that's a recipe for disaster in the NBA. B. A lot of the veterans on this team are going to be traded. Jeremy Grant, I imagine, will be around for the full regular season to increase his value as an offensive player, then shopped in the offseason, but his decision to sign with the Pistons over the Nuggets tells me that winning is not his priority. He cited a bigger role offensively as to why he chose the Pistons, despite Denver offering him the exact same amount of money. But Derrick Rose, Mason Plumlee, and DeLon Wright, and maybe even Blake Griffin, I imagine are going to be shipped off for draft assets and or young players. Blake Griffin, again, a wild card because he might just be horrible and no one wants that contract, or he might be good and someone's willing to take it on. And I will say, in terms of actually building a team for a rebuild, they actually had a pretty good offseason. I would not say the Pistons had a bad offseason at all if they're choosing that direction. Rose, Grant, and Plumlee could probably be turned into 3, maybe even 4 first-round picks. Plumlee is not overpaid. People don't seem to understand that he is one of the best backup bigs in the league, and $8 million a year for that is not bad at all. And from a good team in need of a backup center, you could get a late first for him. Rose can also get a late first, and Grant could net you a similar return that the Houston Rockets got for Robert Covington, which is a mid-first and a future first. So the experienced players on this team are not going to be helping the young players on this team when they're there, and then a lot of the experienced players are eventually not even going to be there to close out this season. But let's talk about what these players can actually do and what they're going to look like on the court. First of all, Killian Hayes to me as a prospect seems like a Malcolm Brogdon type. That's not a direct one-to-one comparison, but that's vaguely the level of player that he projects to be. And that's a nice player to have, but he's also the type of player who is best suited as a complementary piece rather than the main attraction. So even though there will be plenty of shots available for Killian, I don't necessarily know that that's going to be a good thing for him. But he's a solid all-around player, and he will have the keys to the offense early, and maybe that could push his ceiling a little bit, but I also think it could make him appear worse than he actually is. Svi is a really good shooter. DeLon Wright is a good all-around player. I'm going to be interested to see what Jeremy Grant does offensively this year. He very clearly showed an interest in shooting the ball more with the Nuggets in the bubble going into the playoffs, taking more post-ups and attacking the basket more aggressively. He's a solid shooter, great athlete with good length and decent handle. If I had to guess, I'd say he averages around 18 and 10 on mediocre efficiency, shoots more threes, hunts mismatches, and is more aggressive attacking the basket. But make no mistake, these are going to be empty stats, similar to what Marcus Morris did on the Knicks last year. Once he gets traded to a solid team, he'll be back to like 12 to 13 points a game. Blake Griffin is a complete wild card, so I don't really have any assessment for him. Though I will say that if he played like half of the season at a similar level to what he did 2 seasons ago, then I think the Pistons would not be the worst team in the league, but I'm doubtful that that happens at this point. For the backup forwards, Sekou Doumbouya and Saddiq Bey. Sekou is a very raw player. He's tall with good length and athleticism, but his offensive game has almost no polish. At the very least, he can be a good defensive player and a good transition guy. We just have to see more from him before we can give any projections. Saddiq Bey I actually like quite a bit. Initially, I was very puzzled at the Pistons trading Kennard for him, but with Luke already being 24 and very injury prone, I actually don't mind trading him for a forward who has good length, shoots the ball at an elite level off of the catch, is good finishing at the basket, and is also a versatile defensive player. The guy seems like a pretty good modern forward who can play both positions, and if he develops properly, that could be a very nice player to have, more so than Luke Kennard. For the bigs, with the lack of playmaking on this team, I could actually see Mason Plumley averaging a career high in assists. He's a very good passer for a 5, and the last time he was starting at center, he averaged 4 assists a game, and I think we'll see a similar thing in Detroit. Isaiah Stewart isn't really that athletic, but he's a bigger guy who knows where to be on the court and is generally just pretty solid all around, and he's also pretty agile and can defend the perimeter a little bit. On offense, he's a decent finisher, good pick and roll guy, and he's shown flashes as a mid-range shooter, and I think with him shooting 77% from the free throw line, it appears there is hope of him eventually developing into a stretch big. But overall, he seems like a prospect similar to Sekou. Did I say project or prospect there? I hope I said project. I'm not reshooting the line. As I said earlier, I don't think the talent here is abysmal, but it's just not fitting well as an entire unit. Off of the bench, there is only one real three-point shooter in Saddiq Bey. Plumley obviously can't shoot. Jeremy Grant is an okay three-point shooter. Blake Griffin, again, is a wild card. He's been a good three-point shooter and a bad one. Killian Hayes projects to be a good one, and Svi Mykhailiuk is a very good shooter, but that's about it, and the overall shooting on this team is pretty sus. And there's also a lot of raw players on here that are probably not going to be contributing to winning much. We just kind of have to see what they're going to be. The playmaking also is not great. Hayes, I would guess, averages like 5 assists in his rookie year. Derrick Rose averages about the same. And then DeLon Wright and Plumley are pretty capable of that. But that's about it in the passing department. And it's not just the passing. There's also not a whole lot of great ball handlers here. Svi is mediocre. Wright is mediocre. Sekou has a chance to be decent, but as of now, he isn't. Grant is an okay ball handler, and then obviously Killian Hayes and Derrick Rose should be fine. And again, I don't imagine Dwayne Casey is going to do much to help these guys on offense. On the defensive end, Jeremy Grant is a very good defensive player, but he seems like he's going to be putting less of a focus on that. He wants to be more of an offensive guy. Being on a bad team, you're less likely to put effort up on the defensive end. Plumley is okay defensively, Wright is okay defensively, and then their backup forwards and center, their younger guys, project to at least eventually be good defensive players, so I don't think they're going to be a horrible defensive team. However, when you're losing, you don't try that hard on defense, so I would guess like probably 25th in the league in defense, maybe more positively, I'd say like 22nd or something like that. but offensively, I think they're going to be at the bottom of the barrel at number 30. As for what we can expect for this team in the future, a whole lot of trades, a whole lot of losses, and a pretty high draft pick in a very good draft class. They should also have a decent amount of first-round picks from trading Rose, Grant, and Plumley, so going into the 2021-22 season, this team will have 4 second-year guys, 2 third-year guys, and up to 5 rookies from a great draft class. So they are on the right track, and Pistons fans should overall be happy with the offseason that they had. Generally speaking, Christian Wood being gone kind of hurts, but overall I think they made the right decisions outside of just that. And yeah, as I said, they're on the right track. However, part of being on the right track for a rebuild means being bad for a little bit, and they're going to be the worst team in the league in 2021 in my opinion because of that. But shout out to Rudy for editing this video. Go check out that My NBA video if you have not yet. But that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.